I want to show you this clip, and then I'll
My favorite
get your
thing, the
response.
clips. Let's watch it.
Yes, let's watch.
Accounts said someone close to the family had witnessed transfers in the six-figure range attached to an LLC Cody owned and linked directly to Robin's estate. There's no public evidence, of course, but the timing is almost too. What if the dream you built with someone over decades slowly unraveled, not with a bang, but a whisper, not with an explosive betrayal, but tiny cracks that only you perceive? That's what happened to Janelle Brown in the beginning. It was only little things, a forgotten birthday, Miss Holiday, a feeling that her once strong connection with Cody was slipping away silently. For years, she persevered, keeping the family finances afloat, raising the kids, being the same wife who never made too many demands, but quietly something wasn't quite balancing out. And when it did finally, it brought a revelation that could alter everything. You know, this is not only about emotional space anymore, it's about cash, good cash. A whispered $500,000 discreetly paid into Robin's pockets, a home that was meant for the entire family, now in the hands of one wife. Land that was to be their common future, now tainted with secrecy and silence. And at the very center of it all, Janelle, the woman who never sought the limelight, is emerging, posing questions no one ever anticipated her to. And perhaps that's what is so engaging about this tale. It's not merely a reality show playing out on television. It's a tale of trust, of how readily it can be shattered when there's no trail to follow, only handshakes and words of the quiet fortitude required to stand up after 3 decades and say, hold on just a moment, that is not what we were promising. If you've ever been in a relationship where you felt like the rules were shifting beneath your feet, if you've ever looked around and said, was I the only one who believed in this? Then Janelle's story may read painfully familiar, and she's not alone either. Christine is right by her side, their children adult, serious, and observing carefully, are beginning to voice opinions as well. What started as hushed skepticism between two women has expanded to something more, something that could include lawyers' budgets, and perhaps even courtrooms. But don't worry, we're not jumping into scandal for scandal's sake. This isn't about pointing fingers, it's about finally hearing the quiet voices that held everything together while the spotlight shone elsewhere. So grab a seat, breathe deep, and let's go for a walk. Because what follows isn't merely about the Browns, it's about what results when someone finally decides they've given enough, and it's time to start getting back what they're owed. It all began quietly, a whisper among fans, but now it's escalated into something much larger, a full-blown scandal. Perhaps is unraveling based on what fans are piecing together. $500,000 may have quietly passed through a family-connected PayPal account, only to find itself in Robin Brown's hands. That figure, $500,000, has been hovering around the sister wives community like a time bomb waiting to explode. What's most shocking is that the money may have originated from a pool grown with Brown family income over the course of almost 30 years, income that Janelle helped acre away. But here's the catch: Janelle apparently never signed off on that transfer, as reported by online sleuths and some sources close to the family. The transition may have occurred in the later years at Flagstaff, when Cody was still spiritually married to all 4 wives, but in actuality living only as a husband to Robin. The targeted PayPal account was supposedly attached to a shared LLC or a family trust, one that some of the wives invested in monetarily, but without legal marriage or explicitly delineated ownership. Janelle's share may have simply vanished. Initially, fans were shocked, but in all honesty, not that surprised. The timing worked just a little bit too smoothly with Robin's abrupt windfall. A $65 million house in Arizona, a house Janelle went on to say was never intended to be hers and hers alone. That house, to the minds of many viewers, became more than mere property. It represented secrets, betrayal, and the quiet realignment of Cody's priorities. Now fans believe it could be something even bigger, a clue that money wasn't merely mismanaged, but deliberately routed to make things worse. Robin allegedly refused to have anyone else's name on the mortgage Janelle requested. She wanted her share secured, but by the time she insisted, the decision would already have been made. The fantasy of shared life, shared family, and shared future had collapsed. Now it's rumors of embezzlement, of pilfered inheritance, even hush money. Janelle won't name names, but in her recent sit-downs, her tone does the talking. As she put it, I'd like to recoup some of the money I invested in Robin's house. That one line could be the first public shot across the bow, because if any of what's alleged here holds to be true, this isn't an easy money mix-up. It can be a deliberate cover-up, and what Janelle supposedly did next, that may be what blows the entire story wide open. For years, Janelle held it together. She was the rock, the planner, the pragmatist. She didn't require grand romance or fairy tale love She just needed respect, reliability, and an actual partnership. But behind closed doors, those who are closest to the family tell us she was quietly disintegrating. It wasn't one dramatic moment that drove her away. From Cody, it was the slow, steady drip of abandonment, missed holidays, forgotten birthdays. Her children, once the focal point of the family, became afterthoughts. When she is asked why she waited almost 3 decades to leave, her response is brutally candid. Because I believed he was worth it. But ultimately, even that crossed my mind. By the time the family relocated to Flagstaff, the cracks were evident and Cody ceased visiting. Janelle would go on to testify that she actually had to prompt him to pay visits. Meanwhile, he was essentially residing full-time with Robin. She recalls informing him, "You can rest here just as easily as you rest there." But his silence told the tale. The man whom she had raised 6 children with had already departed. He just hadn't spoken the words, allowed the emotional distance, the shady finances, the tension between Cody and the kids. It all got too much. And then came one last blow. When Janelle asked about developing the family's Coyote Pass property, something they'd all put money into together, Cody shut her down. Suddenly their shared vision for that property became a burden. He didn't want to handle that also. Around the time Janelle began noticing things surfacing at Robin's place, new decorations, pricey landscaping, specialized furniture, enhancements that didn't precisely align with family debt, Cody was going on and on about. As Janelle recalled, "I see all these things, and that's okay, I've spent money too. But when you tell us we can't pay off the property, and then I see this. Something's not adding up." The moment the illusion came apart at the seams, she didn't cry, she calculated. And that's when the financial paper trail supposedly began to come into focus. And what Janelle found out, it didn't just shock her, it might have pushed her to think about legal action against the man she once called her partner. Back in the early days, it was meant to be all for one, and one for all. That was the bargain. When the Brown family pulled their funds, it wasn't all about dollars, it was about trust. Every wife contributed what she could. Some brought in paychecks, others managed the kids and home. Together they built a system where love, effort, and money were all mixed up in the same pot. And for a while it worked. The family operated like a small business. Money flowed in, bills got paid, the kids were provided for, and dreams like Coyote Pass felt within reach. But over time things started falling apart, and Janelle saw the cracks before everyone else did. While the rest still dared to dream of peace, she was secretly watching the numbers, and what those numbers told her was something very different. Janelle has since explained how about 10 years ago, it all began to shift. The shared system collapsed. No more pooling, no more planning, just every wife for herself, except of course Robin. When Robin needed a house, everyone contributed. Janelle didn't object at the time because she still felt Robin was on the team, part of the sisterhood. But afterwards, when she asked that the other wives be included in Robin's mortgage, the response was a firm no. "We must safeguard Robin's estate," Cody allegedly said, and it was then that it all became clear to Janelle. This was no longer a family money being quietly used to build towards a future involving only Robin. And meanwhile, Cody was continuing to talk about debts and loose money issues, the sort no one could ever quite follow. He was also purchasing new cars, developing a fleet of trailers, and investing in projects Janelle had never heard of. And all the while, Robin's home was becoming a model home, newly redesigned inside and out, while the other wives were left behind in houses that had not been renovated in years. According to a source close to the family, Janelle finally asked Cody questions, and rather than provide explanations, he cut her down. "I don't know you details," he supposedly said, "because you'll just run it to the rumor mill." But ironically, that is when the gossip really started, because Janelle began looking, and what she discovered was directed to a very private deal, one that might never have been discovered had she not pushed. So where did the alleged $500,000 really originate from? That's the million-dollar question. Fans have theories. Some claim it was from previous TLC checks that were deposited into a joint account. Others cite private donations, the sort fans sent via online tip jars or Patreon-type sites, particularly during the Cody days when Browns were doing a lot of online content. Others believe that the money was made from speaking engagements, book deals, royalties, all kinds of revenue streams Janelle had helped to create but never profited from. And the one thing all these conspiracy theories have in common is nobody knew precisely where the money went except possibly Robin and maybe Cody. But Janelle, she was not letting on it until the warning signs were impossible to dismiss. According to one source, it was an offhand visit to Robin's house that put it all into play. Janelle noticed new landscaping, new wall decor, and a new kitchen backsplash redesign. Nothing on the house seemed budget conscious. And yet for months, Cody had been complaining to her they couldn't afford simple things, not even movement on their Coyote Pass dream. It didn't make sense. What were they actually short money on fours? That's when Janelle began doing the math, not in her head, but in her heart. How much had she spent over the years? How much had she lost? She said it herself. I feel like he's just looking for ways to get rid of me. I don't know. And her kids they'd given up to, raised in humble homes, often having to go without, while she stretched her paycheck and clung to the vision that Coyote Pass would be their reward, their future, their slice of the legacy. But now she was beginning to wonder if that dream had been sold off piece by piece to pay for Robin's comforts. That's when the PayPal rumors started gaining traction online. One fan perfected all went down around the same time Robin purchased that $1 million home with none of the other wives' names signed onto the deed. Janelle never uttered the word fraud out loud. She didn't need to. What she did say on camera was, I'd like to recoup some of the money I invested in Robin's house, not our house, not the family's, Robin's house. And if the insiders are right, Janelle wasn't angry, she was devastated, because what she saw on paper next reportedly verified what she dreaded most. This wasn't just an oversight. This was a pattern. Janelle might have been the first to notice the cracks, but she was not the only one who began to ask questions in the background. Christine was observing too, and not necessarily as a friend, as viewers are aware the friendship between Christine and Janelle has only strengthened since the two of them walked out on Cody. What had started as a mutual feeling of disappointment gradually became something more intense based on sources, perhaps even a joint move to track down the truth. One member of the crew, who worked on the most recent reunion tapings, indicated that Christine and Janelle were frequently seen in corners speaking quietly over finances within families, speaking quietly about things that no longer made sense. One phrase is said to have been repeated over and over again: follow the paper trail. The drama picked up even more after a confessional where Christine suggested that certain things had been withheld from the other wives. She didn't mention Robin, but she didn't need to. Fans quickly made the connection between her subtle suggestions and Janelle's explicit concerns. Christine was also the first to publicly address how one-sided things had become, how Cody was spending so much more time at Robin's house, how Robin's children appeared to be getting more attention, more resources. And when Janelle finally made her accusations regarding the money, Christine's expression told the whole story. She wasn't shocked. She looked like she'd been waiting for someone else to notice it too. There are even rumors that Christine may have caught a glimpse of the financial records Janelle was perusing allegedly in breaks from filming. Christine spoke of some family accounts not being shared with all the wives alike, and now with both women having legal counsel and distance between themselves, they appear more resolute than ever to receive answers. One production source said the two were heard asking a producer if any of the show's residual payments were being placed into a separate account, perhaps managed by Cody and Robin. This was not idle curiosity. They're actively attempting to pursue a path Cody may have thought would never be followed. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Insiders say Robin might have started picking up on this alliance when Christine recently tried to arrange an informal family sit-down. Robin reportedly declined her response. I'm not walking into an ambush, but what she may not realize is that Janelle's next move might not involve confrontation at all. It could be as simple as making one call to a lawyer to listen to Robin recite if the entire narrative goes down differently. She's always positioned herself as the timid one, the mom who learned the hard way how to budget, the wife who obeyed all the rules and yet somehow still found herself blamed. In her own words, she is frugal. She states that after the breakdown of her first marriage, she had to get very strict with money, and sure, she admits to the big house and all the home improvements, but she asserts those were family investments. This was meant to be for all of us, she said, implying that it wasn't selfishness, it was stability. But now with Janelle revealing more and more, it's beginning to have some cracks. Even Robin's account of what happened is starting to crack. Because here's the thing, someone who claims they're all about being transparent doesn't typically shut down every single discussion about money. And when Janelle floated the concept of placing all the wives on Robin's Arizona homes, she didn't merely say no, she is said to have become visibly uncomfortable. 1 hour later, a crew member present at the shoot described Cody jumping in fast to defend her, saying it was all about defending Robin's estate. But how it came across was impossible to overlook. All those years being proclaimed as being one big family, suddenly Robin became a no-go area. Even her previous endorsement of the pooled money system began to look like a performance now that she and Cody were basically living as monogamous partners. The joint funds somehow ran out. What made it even worse was how frequently Robin spoke of being left behind in interview after interview. She'd break down crying Over Christine and Janelle moving forward, over the kids pulling away, over the overall coldness within the family. And while some fans still sympathize with her, many others are beginning to ask, is the sadness real or is it well-timed? As one fan said, Robyn always cries just before the finger-pointing begins. Even her daughters, who are viewed as a bridge between the families, have begun to chime in, stating they never felt especially welcomed by the other wives. But Christine and Janelle stated publicly their doors were always open. So now it's a question of whose version of history is more accurate at this juncture. Robyn's greatest fear may not be the loss of her family, but losing control of the narrative. Because if Janelle's suspicions are correct and other financial records surface, Robyn could face not only fan judgment, but actual accountability. And ironically, the person who inadvertently provided Janelle with the information she sought was Cody himself. For all his bluster and dramatic speeches, Koddy Brown has one huge vulnerability. He talks too much, he rants, he vents, and he overshares. And according to insiders, that's how Janelle first heard about the suspected PayPal transfers, not from a document, not from legal avenues, but directly from Cody's mouth. It allegedly took place during one of their last serious discussions regarding the Coyote Pass land. Janelle was attempting to get the holdup. Where was the money? Why hadn't the land been paid off? And that's when Cody blundered. He mentioned something about having to square things with Robyn's household due to previous family support transfers. At first, it sounded like more of his typical vague speak, but Janelle froze the instant he said it, because that term, family support transfers, wasn't something he'd ever used before. And the way he said it sounded strangely defensive, as if he was attempting to justify something prior to her inquiring about it when she reflected on that discussion. Afterwards, it came to her forcefully if there had been some major financial transaction. That phrase could have been him downplaying it using family speech. It wasn't payment. It was assistance. It wasn't embezzlement. It was merely family business. But Janelle wasn't having it, because in her mind, she was still part of that family. And if Robyn had been given a six-figure amount without the rest of them knowing about it, that wasn't assistance. That was redirecting. What stabbed at her was accepting. Cody might never have told her in the first place. The only reason she knew was because he accidentally let it slip, and once it dawned on him that he done so, he changed subjects immediately, and Janelle picked up on it in the later shows. You can hear the change in her tone. She's not discussing patching up fences anymore. She's considering her next step when she says to Christine, "I think I'm going to have to lawyer up." It doesn't sound emotional. It sounds calculated. It sounds like someone who's already done research and has the proof lined up. And Cody, he becomes more closed off when money is discussed in his interviews. He says things like, "I'm not releasing that anymore. I'm done with information leaks." But what he refers to as leaks, many fans are now referring to as overdue accountability. And the more Cody clammed up, the more determined Janelle was to dig in. Even some fans believe she's not even preparing for a fight. She may be gearing up for a lawsuit. We didn't have any idea. We never had any idea what the other wives were receiving financially. We just knew what we had. But Janelle saw everything, and Janelle doesn't talk much. She's always been quiet, reserved, consistent for years. She adhered to the unwritten rules of plural marriage, no legal marriage, no actual divorce, no legal rights. But now she's redoing her entire role. In one of the season's most memorable moments, she stood Christine square, eyeball to eyeball, and said, "I think I'm going to have to lawyer up." And that wasn't hollow drama. It set into motion a true turning point, because even if she can't produce a marriage certificate proving she was in a relationship with Cody, Janelle absolutely does have something else: years of well-documented shared investments, verbal commitments, and financial support that contributed to the Brown family's foundation. And if even a small percentage of those PayPal rumors pan out, she could very well have a legitimate case, at least in civil court, for recovering some of it. Janelle knows it won't be simple. There's no joint account to split, no legal papers outlining the details, but that it's the very reason she's been secretly meeting with financial and legal professionals off the camera. So to speak according to someone close to production, Janelle even inquired of TLC if her on-camera observations regarding family finances and contributions toward Robyn's roof can be used in court later. Not because she was afraid of getting into legal trouble, but because she wanted everything to be able to stand up legally, because what's been built up for years as a spiritual connection is now beginning to look an awful lot like an informal financial partnership. And if Cody and Robyn treated that trust like their own personal bank account, it's not merely betrayal. It might amount to breach of an informal contract. Then there's Coyote Pass, the property that was going to be their grand joint future, now that it's paid off in Full and Janelle is well and truly no longer part of. The inner circle, she's apparently demanding an itemized breakdown of her share, how much she invested, where the balance of the money went, and whether or not any of it was spent on Robin's bills, particularly her house. According to sources, she's not merely asking, she's gearing up to request detailed documents demonstrating precisely what she invested and where it went. And although Cody continues to maintain she has no legal right, Janelle's made it quite plain she's done relying on his word for anything, and the largest transformation of all her kids are with her fully mature, infuriated, and voicing their opinion, particularly after finding out what may have been stolen from their future. One of them made it very clear, if Cody won't get this sorted, they will. Janelle has always stated she'd put her kids first, and now more than ever she's holding true to that vow when gossip of missing cash began circulating around the family. It wasn't only Janelle who had questions, it was her kids who turned up the heat, particularly Maddie and Gabriel. These weren't small children being held in the dark. They were adults who had grown up in the Brown home, who had witnessed with their own eyes which houses were tended to and which ones were neglected. According to family sources, when Maddie discovered the reported $500,000 transfer associated with Robin's estate, she wasn't shocked. She was enraged, because if that money had originated in the communal pot and her mother had contributed to it, then to Maddie, it wasn't only unjust, it was stealing. She supposedly informed Janelle that until things were wide open, she wanted no dealings whatsoever with Cody or Robin. And she held firm. She cut them off completely. She didn't inform Cody that she was pregnant with her third child. She didn't include Robin in any milestones. And when Cody booked on show that Maddie kept her kids at arm's length at Logan's wedding, it was apparent to viewers just how much the divide had widened. But it was Gabriel who landed the emotional punch once Cody's travel companion and golden child Gabe had grown apart. And when he heard what happened to his mother, he supposedly said to her, if he can step up, I don't ever want to see him again. Even Savannah, Cody's youngest with Janelle, and the only one who still sees him every now and then, has spoken aloud that she's already bracing herself for a future where her brothers, not her father, give her a way down the aisle, because she doesn't think he'll appear when it matters, and that is changing in the next generation. That's what hurts the worst. Cody may have pushed Christine and Janelle aside, but now their children are walking away to not just from frustration, but from self-pity protection. And Janelle sees it, she hears it, and now she's ensuring they're covered, because if this goes to court, she wants every penny accounted for and tracked. And Robin, she's gone silent, not only on social media, but on television and even with close relatives, because if what comes next ends up in court, silence won't work anymore. The silence is louder than any statement. No denials, no cryptic messages about family privacy. Robin has vanished from the conversation. And Cody, he's opted for spiritual quotes and pointing fingers. But behind the scenes, everything has shifted. Janelle isn't playing peacekeeper anymore. She's the one with receipts. And fans think she is not only seeking emotional closure, she is building for something bigger. Because what began an emotional betrayal has now turned into an all-out financial reckoning. The big question still lingers, how much did Robin actually get? Was it $500,000? Or was that only the beginning? Could there be more dispersed throughout a series of transfers, buried under loose descriptions such as household expenses or family reimbursements? TLC hasn't commented, but some fan accounts claim anonymous tips have already been forwarded to legal blogs and financial regulators. And if an official investigation ever begins, this won't be about family soap opera anymore. It could reveal years of backroom transactions, painting a much different picture than what we were shown on TV. Meanwhile, Christine is standing firm right next to Janelle, both in front of the camera, and behind the curtain, she's not doing this for revenge, but she's completely set on justice, someone close to the show said. If you think Christine and Janelle are finished discussing, you're mistaken. They're only just beginning. And the fans, they're not sitting idly. They're demanding a spin-off Faith. They're calling for transparency and even creating hashtags like "Where did the money go?" and Team Janelle receipts. Because if Robin thought tears would swing at this time, she may be in for a shock. Because now there are spreadsheets, there are bank records, and there is a woman who spent 30 years keeping her family first, only to discover the family she thought was hers might already have moved on without her. Janelle's future does not include Cody. It does not include empty promises or religious labels. It includes fax paper and a hard, steady attempt to rebuild what she's entitled to. So now we turn to you. Do you believe Janelle is going to take all of this to court? And if those PayPal transactions are ever verified, should Robin have to pay it back? Like this video, subscribe, and stay tuned, because the next video on your screen is coming ready, and trust me, you won't want to miss.